Yan. So, last time, we are done with the part 1 of writing the chapter 1 of your thesis. So, we are done discussing how are you going to make your introduction, at the same time, the statements of the problem, and the assumptions and hypothesis. So, sa part 2, we will cover the significance of the study, and then we have the scope and the limitation, the conceptual and theoretical framework, and the last one, we have the definition of terms. So, sige. So, for the significance of the study, so take note, this will be another part of the chapter 1. Sa significance of the study, this will contain the specific persons or group of persons, or it can be an organization that will uh, obtain or makakuha ng benefit sa study ninyo. So, isa-isahin nyo talaga yon. For example, you as the researchers, you will include yourselves in the significance of the study, and then you will state there what specific benefits will you get when you conduct this research. Or you can include the school. So for example, GSD MSFI. And then you will really state there what benefit will the school get from your study. So, included there sa significance of the study is the first one, who do you think will benefit from the result of your study? And then again, what particular benefits for particular beneficiaries could be derived from your study? So, this is how you are going to make the significance of the study. So this is just an example, ha. So we have significance of the study. So this study aims to contribute the following people or group of people who will benefit the, this one is a study about instructional material for pharmacology. So do you have pharmacology sa inyo? May pharmacology ba ang medtech? Meron ba? Can you, tell me if merong pharmacology na subject ang medtech? Wala? So you do.
No.
Okay, I thought merong pharmacology because the nursing and the rad tech, meron silang pharmacology na study. So pharmacology is the study of drugs. So wala pala kayong pharmacology. Anyway, so this is just an example, ha. So for example, we have the pharmacy students. So i-bold nyo yung specific group of people na mag-benefit sa study nyo. And then after the name of the group of people or the organization, you will state there what kind of benefit will they get. So for example, this study will benefit the pharmacy students, especially those who are currently taking up pharmacology, through the knowledge, skills, and confidence they will gain by connecting what they have learned in the classroom to the actual practical laboratory procedures. So that's how you state the significance of the study. Now you have to arrange the entities or the organizations or group of people according to general to specific. I mean, general na I general na what you call that, benefits na makuha nila, and then i-list niyo sila until sa group of people na yung specific talaga yung makukuha nila na benefit. Kasi meron tayong, wait lang, meron kasi tayong arrangement ng significance of the study based on the impact. So kung sino sa tingin nyo ang pinaka-maka-benefit sa significance of the study, ito yung unang ililista nyo dito. And then, ang list na magkakaroon ng benefit, siya yung last. So, kung i-ask nyo, mga ilang group of people ang ililist nyo sa significance of the study, at least 7. So, sa 7 na yun, included na yung sarili ninyo, and then yung future researchers. Again, yung future researchers should be included kasi yung result ng study niyo will be included in the body of knowledge. So, it will really help the future researchers kasi yung research ninyo will become a reference sa sunod. Ayan. So, dalawa na yon ha. So, you will just add at least 5 na lang for the significance of the study. So, depende kasi yon sa mapili ninyo na study kung sino talaga yung magbe-benefit. So, example, medtech students. Ayan. Ano ba yung makukuha na benefit ng mga medtech students from your study? Or even the community. For example, your study is about the community. So you will list sa significance of the study, what benefit will the community get when you have already completed your study. So ganito siya pagkasulat. And then we have theoretical framework. So sa theoretical framework, this will include the rationale behind your study. It can be a law, it can be a theory, or a concept or idea from other persons wherein doon naka-anchor yung study ninyo. So, doon ang central theme ng study ninyo sa theoretical framework. So, ano ba yung dapat makuha nyo when you write your theoretical framework? So, example, theory. You have to get the name of the author or authors of the theory, the place and the time or year, kung kailan niya ginawa yung theory or law na yon. And then, you have to write also the part of the theory na significant or relevant sa study ninyo. And then, synthesis by relating to your findings. So, i-relate nyo ngayon yung theory ninyo doon sa magiging supposedly result or findings ninyo sa research ninyo. So, example of this is actually the same study yung sa making or development of an instructional material for pharmacology. So, sa theoretical framework, ang kinuha na theory is the theory of constructivism. So, state nyo yung theory and then i-describe nyo naman kung ano yung theory, like stating that how people learn is based on observation and scientific study. So, the reason why gagawa ng instructional material for pharmacology kasi learning is actually based on observation and scientific study. Sa laboratory kasi yun siya na part ang study na ito. Kaya ito ang theory na pinili kung saan i-anchor yung study. So kung nakita ninyo, you have the name of the author, the name of the author sa theory, and then yung part ng theory kung saan significant siya sa study. Though pinutol ko ito, hindi nakalagay dito yung pag-relate ng theory doon sa actual na research. But this is how you make the theoretical framework. So for example, your study is about hand washing. So you have to place in your theoretical framework theories or laws or concepts about hand washing. You have to state who authored it and at the same time, ano ba yung nilalaman ng theory na yon. So that's it. Now, if you ask me, how about sa experimental na study, ma'am? Ano yung ilalagay sa experimental na study? It's the same thing. Pwede siyang law. Meron tayong maraming laws sa chemistry or kahit anong subject, meron tayong mga laws, di ba? So you can place here the laws na relevant doon sa study mo kung saan naka-anchor yung study or experiment na gagawin mo. That's how you make the theoretical framework. And then the next one, we have the conceptual framework. So sa conceptual framework naman, yung ilalagay natin dito ay yung mga variables. So yung mga variables at the same time, yung relationship ng variables with each other. So again, ang ilalagay sa conceptual framework ay yung mga variables natin and their relationship with each other. So, ito yung magiging mukha ng conceptual framework natin. So, meron tayong i-identify natin what will be the independent variable sa ating study. and then the dependent variables. So pag sinabi nating independent variables, ito yung minamanipulate natin sa ating study. Kung nag-experiment tayo, ito yung variables na kinakandaktan natin ng study natin. So for example, yung plant, if you want to study the antibacterial activity of plant, then the independent variable there is your plant, yung plant sample mo. Kasi yun yung minamanipulate mo sa study mo, including your controls. So kung may negative control ka or may positive control ka, yung positive control, yun yung, for example, may drug na antibacterial din sa market, ito yung ginagamit talaga, and then you want to know if magkapareha lang ba ang effect ng existing drug sa market and yung plant mo, isasali mo siya dyan sa control, sa positive and then the negative control. And then, so we have here the effect. If you manipulate the independent variable, it will take note of the arrow. So papunta siya doon sa dependent variable. So when you say dependent variable, it's the outcome or the consequence ng pag-manipulate mo sa independent variables. So actually, most of the studies contain this independent and dependent variable. And then, meron lang ibang studies na may nakasulat na moderating or mediating variables or confounding variables, mga intervening variables to sila. So, kanina pa ako nag-discuss ng variables, but when you say variables class, it's a concept na merong observable value, and then itong mga variables na to may influence, meron silang influence to other variables or concept. So, again, in a research study, most of the time, we have the independent and dependent variable. So again, do not forget, pag independent variable, this is the one na merong effect or mag-cause ng change to another variable. So most of the time, it's on the dependent variable, yung effect nitong independent variable. So pwede din natin siyang tawaging predictor variable. Now, for the dependent variable, let me give emphasis to this. Pag sinabing dependent variable, ito naman yung consequence or yung result or outcome pag minanipulate mo yung independent variable mo. So, we also call this criterion variable. And then may dinagdag ako kanina, the moderators or moderating variable, pwede siya actually qualitative. Pag sinabi mong qualitative, di ba, walang numerical value. Like for the gender. So wala namang numerical value yung gender natin. The same thing with the race and the class. Or pwede ding yung moderating variable natin ay quantitative. So pag quantitative, meron naman siyang numerical value, or for example, level of reward. So ano itong moderating variables natin? It can be qualitative or quantitative variables na merong effect sa direction or strength of relationship between your independent variables and dependent variables. So for example, availability of reference materials, that's the independent variables. Now, your expected outcome mo na gusto mong makuha when you conduct the study is you want to know the number of rejects sa mga reference manuals na available sa school. Now, pwede ito IV and DV. Pero actually, meron siyang moderating variable na magkakaroon ng influence doon sa outcome mo. So we have here, lalagay mo siya sa gitna. We have interest and inclination. So interest or inclination ng mga students when it comes to reading references. So kaya magkakaroon ng effect talaga yon sa number of rejects sa available na reference manuals. So, itong next slide, these are other examples of IVDV plus IVDV is independent variable and dependent variable plus the moderating variable or moderator variable. Like for example, this one, you want to know the effect of the hours of study, to the exam score. So the independent variable there, yung tinitingnan mo is the hours of study ng mga students. And then, you want to know kung tataas ba ang hours of study nila, tataas din yung exam score. So yung dependent, yung outcome mo dito is the exam score. So kung ito lang silang dalawa, actually makakakuha ka talaga ng result. But take note na meron kang moderating variable here. Meaning, itong nasa gitna, magkakaroon siya ngayon ng effect dito sa outcome mo. Like sa IQ. Paano kung mataas yung hours of study niya pero mababa pa rin yung exam score? So itong IQ will actually explain why. So kaya moderating variable siya. And then another thing, we have here the stress. You want to know if mataas ba ang level ng stress ng isang tao, mag-lead siya into depression. So this is IV and then this is DV, meaning your outcome. But meron ka ditong moderating variable which is social support. But take note lang sa hindi lahat ng study merong moderating variable. You just have to identify if meron ba talaga. And then another thing, the teaching method. You want to know if the teaching method used in the school is effective for the student when it comes to their academic performance. So, gusto mong tingnan, effective ba ang teaching method? Kasi tataas yung academic performance ng students. But, take note na hindi lang isa kasi yung nag-i-influence sa academic performance ng student. Meron ka pang background ng estudyante. So, background niya sa family. Aside from that, yung financial status nila. Ayan. So, kung kaya bang provide ng parents nila ang lahat ng kailangan nila para tumaas yung academic performance. So, ito lang talaga yung gusto mong tingnan. Pero you have to consider na meron ka pang ibang nag-i-influence in terms sa academic performance ng students. By the way, I have read some of your concept papers, no? And then, mostly paulit-ulit lang yung sinusulat ko doon sa comments. Meron doong mga studies na academic performance. I just want to know how are you going to measure the academic performance of the students? Kasi, pwede kasi siyang based sa grades. But, I want you to take into consideration that we have the privacy law natin, data privacy law, wherein yung mga grades ng students, hindi mo yan basta-bastang maa-access. Kailangan pa mananghid sa students, no? Kailangan ka pa mag-ask ng permission sa student if they really want to give you their grades. And at the same time, magle-letter pa kayo kay dean and sa registrar if they will allow you to collect the grades of the student. So this is for the studies na merong academic performance na involved. Yan. So, yung sa exam ko class next week, ganito yung mangyayari. I will let you identify which is the independent variable and ano yung dependent variable. So, let's have an example. So, Dr. Smith examines daily exposure to a sun lamp. So, ang ginawa niya, may in-expose siya for 1 hour and then meron din siyang hindi in-expose. So, he wants to examine the impact and the people's depression levels in the winter time. Kasi studies show, 'di ba, kapag malamig yung lugar, malamig yung climate, tumataas yung depression rate sa isang lugar. So actually may effect yung climate doon sa depression. So ito yung study, gusto niya matingnan if kung may exposure ba sa sun at least for an hour, or yung iba walang exposure, titingnan kung ano ba yung depression level. So all you have to do is to identify which is the independent variable and which is the dependent variable. Do not forget, pag independent variable, ito yung minamanipulate natin sa study, and then yung dependent variable will be the outcome or the consequence. So sa tingin ninyo, saan dito yung dependent variable? So, letter A, 1 hour exposure. Letter B, no exposure. I'm talking about exposure sa sunlight or sa sun lamp. And then letter C, depression. Sige, so sa tingin ninyo, would like to answer? Or manawag na lang ko? Or basta gusto mo answer? Ano sa tingin nyo yung dependent variable here? Any idea? Outcome.
Depression, ma'am.
Depression.
Yes? Paulit? Sino
Depression
yun?
po, ma'am.
Di ko kasi makita klase na nagsalita. Joshua? Si Joshua yon?
Si Abner po, ma'am.
Ay, si Abner. Di ko makita. Class. Abner?
Yes
Ano
po,
answer
ma'am.
mo? Paulit?
Depression po, ma'am.
Depression?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Sige. So, the answer that depression is actually correct. So, that's the dependent variable. Ito kasi yung outcome mo. For example, ang isang group of people, in-expose mo sa sun, ang isa hindi. And then, titingnan mo ngayon sino sa kanila ang nagkaroon ng depression, or titingnan mo ang level of depression nila. So, naging outcome ngayon yung depression. Kaya siya yung dependent variables. And then, yung exposure, both of that, 1 hour exposure and no exposure, both of them are independent variables. So, sila yung minanipulate natin sa study. So number 2, wait lang ha, let us admit everyone na na-disconnect. Ayan. For number 2, does age of the child, so you have there 4, 5, and 6, influence when children can learn to read. So let's identify what is the dependent variable. So letter A, age of the child, or letter B, level of reading. So again, does age of the child, 4, 5, or 6, influence when children can learn to read? So what will be the the dependent variables first? So ganito lang din yung exam ko, ipapa-identify ko which is the independent and the dependent variable. So what will be the outcome here? Manawag ta. You unmute yourself ha. Sige. Wait. Sige, Joycel. Joycel, what will be the dependent variable here? Ano yung magiging outcome natin? I cannot hear you.
Level of learning, reading.
Yes. So correct, that is level of reading. That will be the dependent variable. Yun yung kasi yung outcome tinitingnan natin sa study. So ang minamanipulate is yung age of child. Yan yung criterion variable natin. Predictor variable. Magpa-predict ba ang age sa child sa kanyang level of reading? So, ayun. So, again, age of child is the independent variable and the level of reading is the dependent variable. So, predictor variable natin ang age. Kung makaka-predict ba siya kung mas mataas ba yung age, mas mataas din ba ang level of reading. Ayan, for the last one, we have time reading on exam performance. Again, time reading on exam performance. So, this is the problem. Time reading on exam performance. Now, what is the dependent variable, Angel?
Ramos, ma'am.
Ramos. Daghan ba mo, Angel?
May Angelica din kasi, ma'am.
Dili ko kabatian sa?
May Angelica din po kasi. Yung dependent,
okay.
ma'am, no?
Dependent variable.
Yung dependent variable, ma'am, is yung time reading.
Ha?
Ay, hindi, ma'am. Yung exam performance pala, ma'am.
Exam performance. Okay. Sige, sa time reading on exam performance, ang dependent variable here, again, is the exam performance. Ito kasi yung outcome. Like for example, tiningnan mo yung time reading nila, like ilang oras ba sila nagbabasa, kung mataas ba ang time na nilalaan nila for reading, tataas din ba yung exam performance nila. So, kung i-analyze nyo yon, ang outcome doon is yung exam performance. So, siya yung dependent variable. And then, the independent variable here is the time reading. So, that's how you determine the independent and dependent variables. So, sa conceptual framework class, maglalagay kayo ng diagram stating the independent and dependent variable. And then, kung may moderating variable, then you include that. And then, after that, you have to explain the diagram. So, sa conceptual framework, hindi lang hanggang diagram ha. You have to explain anong sinulat nyo dyan sa diagram ninyo. So sa paradigm of the study, ito na yung diagrammatic representation of the conceptual framework. Yung binigay ko kanina is the IVDV model, meaning the independent and dependent variable na model. But actually sa paradigm of the study, you can also use the IPO model. So IPO model is the input, process, and output model of the research work. So ganito yung magiging mukha ng diagram nyo. You have the input here, and then you have the process, and then the output. So sa input, ito yung information na kinukuha nyo sa research study ninyo. So, sa input, ilalagay nyo yung mga items na sinulat nyo sa statement of the problem. So, ito yung ini-inquire natin sa research study. And then sa process, this will include the method of operations that you are going to use to gather your data. So, for example, gagamit kayo ng questionnaire. So, isusulat nyo sa process nyo na gagamit kayo ng questionnaire. And then, aside from that, you can also conduct interview. So, that's a process. Process in gathering data, conducting an interview. Or, aside from that, by the way, aside from the interview or questionnaire survey, you may also add sa process the statistical measures that you are going to use in evaluating, analyzing, or interpreting your data. So, I believe you are done with your statistics. So, kung for example, mag-t-test kayo, then you will include under sa process the t-test, the ANOVA, or other statistical tools na pwedeng gamitin in interpreting or analyzing your data. And then sa last one, sa output, ito na yung magiging result or expected outcome sa study ninyo. So ilalagay niyo siya sa box under the output. So this is an example. Please remove this. This is not a theoretical framework. This is a conceptual framework. Pa-edit na lang. Again, this is a conceptual framework. So, for example, we have the input here. So, ang input again, ito yung mga items na nasa statement of the problem natin. Like, tatanong natin sa patient, sa respondent or participant, their demographic profile. So, you want to know their age, their sex, their educational attainment, position, etc. So, kasali yan siya dyan sa input. And then, dito sa next is yung mga specific information na that you want to know in your study or ask sa participants sa inyong study. And then sa process, you have the questionnaire, survey, and then the statistical treatment. And then sa last one, you have there the output. So this is an example, self-care ability of hemodialysis patients with end-stage renal disease at Hospital ng Sampaloc prior to the initiation of the treatment. So, a basis for formulation of teaching plan is proven in this thesis. So, i-attach natin ngayon yung teaching plan because that will be the output. This is how you do an IPO model of the conceptual framework. So after this figure, you have to describe or discuss this in a paragraph form. So, i-describe nyo ngayon ano ba yung sinulat nyo dyan sa diagram ninyo. So, that's for the IPO model, conceptual framework. Any questions? Any questions? Actually karon nga naga-discuss mo, wala mo question kasi you cannot picture this out pag hindi pa kayo gumagawa ng research ninyo. But I believe once you start making your chapter 1, daghan na kayong mangutana sa ko. Daghan kayo nig-message maabot either sa Schoology or sa Facebook. Mangutana how are you going to do your research. But anyway, you can ask questions anytime. It's just that usahay, syempre na ako'y klase, late na ko makatubag. But anyway, you can just send message, matubag ko pag free na ko for your questions. Kasi again, you cannot picture this out lalo pat wala pa kayong research problem. And then we have scope and delimitations of the study. So sa scope and delimitations of the study, ang kailangan yung ilagay is the parameter or the boundaries sa inyong research study. So you have to place here the area, the issues, what kind of respondents you have to describe your respondents or participants, and in the period, when are you going to conduct your study, and the limitations or constraint of your study, if any. So again, anong dapat isusulat sa scope and delimitations? Una, you have to write there a brief statement of the general purpose of the study. So you will start, the aim of this study is to, like that. So aim or purpose or goal, that's the first one. And then you have to also include the subject matter and topics studied and discussed in your study. And then the local of the study, where are you going to conduct the study? Saan nyo i-gather yung data ninyo? And then, you have to describe the population of your respondents na sinelect nyo to be included in your study. So, i-describe nyo ngayon. Ano ba yung respondents nyo? Mga medtech students ba? First year lang ba? Or lahat ng medtech students? And the last paragraph should contain the period of the study, meaning kailan nyo ikakandak yung study na ito. So this is an example of the scope and the limitation of the study. So like this one, we started with the aim of the study, and then it includes the ideas or the problem, the concept or issues that you want to know in your study. It also, this one, the second paragraph described the respondents of the study, including actually the process that you are going to do to obtain the data. Like we have here the interview. And then the last one will have the local. So we have local, and you have here the period. So when you are going to conduct the study. So this is how you do the scope and the limitation of the study. Again, this will give you the parameter or boundaries sa study mo. Ano ba yung included sa study? Now, please take note that there is a difference between delimitations and limitations. Pag sinabi mong delimitations, the aim here is to narrow down the scope of your study. So, ano lang ba yung included? While pag sinabi mong limitations of the study, ang purpose nito is to identify the weaknesses or the potential weaknesses sa study mo. Like for example, itong study na ito, di ba, this is the development of laboratory manual. So ito yung scope. Ito yung scope. Gusto ng researcher mag-develop ng laboratory manual, gusto niyang malaman ang status ng pag-teach ng pharmacology sa school, gusto niyang malaman kung effective ba ang teaching learning activities, ang forms of assessments, yung forms of assessments, mga quiz, mga exam. And then gusto niya ding ma-identify ang experiences ng mga students at the same time ng mga teachers. So ito yung scope niya. Yung respondents will be the BS Pharmacy students sa GSD MSFI. And then, may mga professors din siya na i-interview. Dito, ikakandak ang study sa GSD MSFI at ito yung period. Ito yung delimitation, the scope. Pero, pag i-identify ang limitation, meaning ang weakness ng study na ito is, ang weakness actually ng study na ito is, i-identify din kasi yung level of performance, though hindi nakasulat dito. Pero, let me edit this one. I-identify kasi sa study na ito yung level of performance ng students. So, yung limitations there, ang weakness nito is hindi ngayon i-identify ng study ang factors affecting the level of performance. Meaning, igo lang siya mag-identify kung how well the students perform in this subject, pero hindi i-identify kung ano ba yung mga factors na nag-i-influence, bakit ganun yung performance nila. So, yun dapat yung limitations ng study. So, I hope you know the difference between the limitations and limitations. And then the last part, we are now on the last part of our chapter 1, the definition of terms. So dito sa definition of terms, you have to identify terms that you believe or sa tingin ninyo difficult for your readers to understand. So you have to define them. Now, this is arranged alphabetically, and these terms, most of the time, ito yung mga terms na nasa title mo. Again, these are terms, difficult terms na nasa title ng iyong study. So we have two types of definition. The first one is the conceptual definition, which is the literal definition or the dictionary na definition ng inyong mga terms na ginamit sa study mo. So therefore, since this one is obtained from a dictionary or encyclopedia or other na mga references, you have to cite your references here. So for example, adolescence. So this is the definition of adolescence according to Corate 2004. So this is the conceptual definition. Kailangan, after the definition, you really have to do parenthetical citation. So like this one, galing siya sa Merriam Dictionary. So again, you have to cite kung saan nyo kinuha ang definition na yan. But, pag ang ginamit nyo ay operational definition, this is not from the dictionary. So, meaning wala kang citation na gagawin dito. Bakit? Kasi operational definition is based on the contextual meaning or ang meaning ng term na yon kung paano nyo siya ginamit sa research ninyo. So, kung paano ginamit ang term na yon sa research ninyo. So, I have an example here. So, itong research na ito, dalawang klase ng definition ang kinuha nila. Though hindi nila sinite yung conceptual nila na definition. So, again, kailangan sa conceptual, kailangan merong citation ha. Sa operational, wala. So, example this one, pediatric radiology. So, conceptually, it is a part of digital imaging that focuses on pediatrics. So, this is the conceptual definition according to books or dictionaries or encyclopedias. Now, sa operational definition, operationally, you have to state it na operational definition talaga, it is where the research focuses in terms of digital imaging. So, ganito yung gamit ng terms na pediatric radiology sa study na ito. That's how you state the operational definition. Or we have here pediatric patient. Conceptually, it refers to patients who are infants and children. So that's according to the dictionary. But operationally, ano ba ang gamit na term ng term na pediatric patient sa study na ito? So operationally, they are the participants or subject in this research study and is restricted only to ages 3 to 6 years old. So ito yung gamit pag nabasa nyo sa study ang words na ito, pediatric patient, it means it's the participant or the subject sa research study. That's how the operational definition is given or paano mo siya ginawa. And then we have here radiologic technologist. So conceptually, ito yung definition ng radiologic technologist according to books. But operationally, when you say radiologic technologist in this study, these are the main respondents of this research. So ganun pagkagawa sa operational definition. And then we have X-ray definition. So you have conceptual meaning according to books. But operationally, when you say X-ray examination, in this study, it is the main modality that plays a vital role in this study. So X-ray yung ginamit nila para makuha nila yung data na gusto nilang makuha in this study. Or that's operational definition, meaning how you use this term in your study. So that's the last part of our chapter 1. So do you have any questions? Mag-entertain ako ngayon ng questions sa ating lesson. I have already given this slide sa Schoology. So you just have to download. Any questions, class? Wala? Wala? Sige. So I believe ang questions ay mangyayari kapag mag-start na kayo ng inyong chapter 1. But that's okay. Hindi nyo talaga yan mapipicture out ngayon. I just want to give you the pointers for the exam and the types of questions. So, for the test 1 sa ating exam class, meron akong identification dyan. So, you just have to identify the terms defined or described in each item. Again, the first part will be definition of terms. Identification. So, naka-define lang yung mga terms dyan from the first lesson until hanggang sa last na coverage. So, that's 10 points. 10 items, 10 points. And then the next one, we have multiple choices. So you have multiple choices, 14 items. That is also 14 points, so 1 point each item. And then we have the third one. The third part of my exam is you have to express the given sentences in the null form. Meaning, I have given hypothesis here, and then you have to express, you have to rewrite them, but in the null form. So, ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng null form? It's on the negative form. So, you have to rewrite the sentence and then you have to express it in the null form. Hypothesis ito. And then the fourth one, the fourth part of my exam is rewrite the following with the correct parenthetical citation. So, ipa-rewrite ko sa inyo ang idea or pwede siya sentence or sentences. You have to rewrite them and then you have to include proper parenthetical citation. So, binigay ko din doon yung mga author, yung date of publication, yung title, para magawa nyo yung correct na parenthetical citation. And then, the fifth part of my exam is you have to identify, based on the given research title or problem, the dependent and independent variables. So again, you have to identify kung saan yung dependent and independent variables. Sorry. Sa dogs. Naghat kay mig-iro diri sa among balay, so medyo musaba gyud na sila. And then we have, the last part will be the essay. I have 2 questions for the essay here. Wait lang ha. Sige. Any questions sa exam? Wala?
Ma'am,
Yes?
unsang pangutana sa essay?
Sa pautan sa essay. It's for you to find out during the exam. It's di ba I only have tatlo lang ito na topic na. So, nature of research, basics of research, and the last one, how to write the chapter 1. So, meron akong discuss or ipa-differentiate. So, basahin nyo lang yung PowerPoint ko. And then, if you have questions, you can ask me before the exam. Meron na bang schedule ang exam? Wala pa?
Wala pa po, ma'am.
Wait lang. Parang may sinend si Dean sa GC ng faculty. Let me see it first, ha. Gamay ra ba kayo dito kita? Wait lang. Wait lang, ha. So, first day. Yes, September 7 ang first day sa exam, right? Tama ba? September 7. Okay, tama.
Yes, ma'am. Tama po.
Yes, ma'am.
September 7. Let me see. BSMT 3. BSMT 3. 8:30 to 10. MLS 315. What is that? 8:30 to 10 sa first day is MLS 315. What is that? MLS 315. I don't know that subject. I actually don't know what's the code of this subject. So, hanapin natin. And then, let me see BSMT 3. Kagamay ba? BSMT 3. BSMT. Yun lang. Ang exam niya sa first day. Katulad yung exam. BSMT.
Ma'am, wala kaming MLS 315.
Kung saan din ang MLS 315? Kung saan ang subject? Can you look at what is MLS 315? Kung saan na? Patanaw, please, and then, basta maulang ni nakabutang dire. Wala na inyong subject. Tapos 8:30 to 10. That's the first day. And then, what else? So, on the second day,
Research, ma'am. Sa'yo, ma'am.
315 ng research? I thought it's...
MLS 315 Intro to MedLab Science Research.
Okay. So, your first exam on Monday, 8:30 to 10, and that's your only exam. 8:30 to 10, research. Okay, so we have our schedule na. So, on the second day, you have here, wala may BSMT 3 dere. BSMT 3. So, mao pa lang na yung exam. Mao pa lang na ang nasa schedule. So, kung napamayuban subject, maybe it will fall sa third day. Tanan? Third day? Kay isa ka subject sa first day. Tapos, second day, wala dire. BSMT 3. So, the rest na inyong mga subject will fall sa third day. Ano lang?
Ma'am,
Yes?
yung sa revise good na concept paper, ma'am, buong concept paper ang i-revise?
Yes. Pero, class, ang ang deadline, next week pa man, pag human sa exam, Sunday. Pag human sa exam, pag-study sa mo, para makakonsentrate mo sa inyong exam. I was not able to check it last Saturday. Kaya I was not feeling well, Jud. My eyes, dili, Jud, okay ako ang mata. Dili ko kadugay tanaw sa screen sa laptop. I cannot even see sa cellphone. Gamay kaayo. Sakit. Sige lang kung suka sa ako ang mata. Masakit. So, I was not able to check your concept paper. Kagahapon pa lang Jud ko nagka-time. And nakaya na ko siya checkan. Pero dili pa Jud tanan. So, you just wait hangtod ma-checkan ako siya tanan. What else? Any more concerns? Katong mga na-checkan ako, if you have question, you can ask me now. Yes?
Ma'am, na-submit na yung ko, ma'am, quiz.
Ay, ang quiz? Ang quiz na, no? You're talking about the quiz? Wait lang, ha? Needs grading, needs grade. Yes, na-submit na. So, okay na. Except for Maningding. Wala naka-take og quiz. So, absent si
Thank you,
Maningding.
ma'am.
And then,
Oh,
si
but Eligado po, ma'am.
Kanyagado also. Si Eligado, okay na. Okay na inyong quiz. So, na-submit na tanan. Can you look at the concept paper? If na-checkan na nako, you can ask me questions. Katong sa mga wala pa na-checkan, pag na-checkan na, you can ask me question, PM lang mo. Wait lang ha, let me see the schedule first. Wala pa namang, wait. So, nag-send si Dean ng bagong scan. BSMT 3. BSMT. Browse lang. Okay. So, wala pa schedule ang third day sa exam. Murag, dito gid na mabutang ang inyong other subjects. Sige. Any more concerns? Actually, I'm done with my lesson, but we still have 30 minutes left. So, I will just, mag-answer na lang ako ng mga questions niyo regarding your revised concept paper. I have listed here, most of you, your study is about the online learning, online class. So, murag paulit-ulit lang ako nabasa diri online class. Wait, let me open it again. And then may nag-comment ako doon na iba, medyo hindi ko maintindihan yung central idea ng inyong concept paper. So, nag-comment ako doon na paulit. And then, nag-comment ako sa mga study na medyo hindi related sa course ninyo. Kasi dapat yung topic ninyo related dapat sa course ninyo. And then, may ibang concept paper na parang studies dapat sila ng other department. Like, for example, mental health, that is not actually related to your course, the mental health. It should be the psych students who will study that. And at the same time, you cannot really measure the mental health of the students without the aid of a psychologist. So, medyo mahihirapan tayo doon. Any more concerns? Or I will just continue checking the concept paper and then you wait. Sige, continue ko na lang. You can unmute yourself if you have questions sa akin. Mabatian man ako pag may question mo. Basahin niyo yung concept paper kung na-checkan na ako.
Ma'am,
Yes.